Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 2018 ATS GT. Now this is a mid-engined rear-wheel drive sports car that shares its air brake, wing mirrors, dihedral doors, engine and transmission with the McLaren 12C. But it's not a McLaren in a fancy suit by any means, as it's a spiritual successor to the only other road car that ATS made, called the 2500 GT, way back in the early 60s. Which also had only 12 producers like this car is going to have. And yeah, that was actually the first ever mid-engine rear-wheel drive road-going vehicle. I know a lot of people like to say the Lamborghini Miura is, but it was the original ATS 2500 GT. And yeah, no two cars will be similar, as they will all be bespoke to whatever customer is buying them. And yeah, I really do like the aspects of this car. That, you know, it's based on a McLaren, so it's got all the technology and the engineering on the underneath, but it's got a far better and far more unique and more special body on the outside, while also having more power and less weight than a McLaren 12C to make it an even faster sports car, quite frankly. And yeah, I do love the look of this car, to be honest. I really do. And yeah, even though I've not seen an original 2500 GT in its full form, apparently a lot of the elements of this car are, you know, homaging that original car. And yeah, like the McLaren, it's got a boot at the front, and yeah, it's also got the same engine, like I said, as the McLaren. So that's a 3.8 litre twin turbocharged V8, but instead of producing 92 horsepower, sorry, it now produces 720 horsepower. And instead of producing 442 pounds-feet of torque, it now produces 575 pounds-feet of torque. So it's a significant increase in horsepower and torque. And like I said, this does weigh less than the 12C, 46 pounds less, in fact, at 2,985 pounds. So yeah, a lot more power and a lot more torque, plus less weight, while still having really good balance. And yeah, all of the engineering underneath, as well as obviously the same transmission. So it's a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox, just like the 12C. So changes are rapid fire, you've got no lag whatsoever or anything like that. And yeah, it's really special in terms of what it's got going as well. It's got sensors in the door that detect close proximity, so they open up before you get there. Obviously, if you've got the key on you, obviously it's not going to open up for anyone. And yeah, the interior is really rather nice as well. It even uses Google Maps on its hood. And yeah, it's got this sound speaker system called, I think it's called Prima Orchestra or something like that, which is basically a lot of little 3mm sound speakers in strategic places to give you the sense of being in an orchestral environment, which rather than, you know, just having massive speakers like on the door there, it's got lots of little ones as well. So yeah, really do like the interior, really do like the look of the vehicle, and because it's got all that power and not much in the way of weight, it's quite a fast vehicle as well. To see how fast, we're going to get out into the open road and see just what this car can do. So even though this car does share a lot with the McLaren 12C, it basically shares the best bits of that car, because the engine and the transmission and the doors were certainly the best parts of that vehicle. Whereas with this, we have all those best bits, but we also have far better looks, and crucially, far more power, far more torque, and a little bit less in the way of weight. So yeah, what you've got here is one of the rarest, easily one of the rarest sports cars out there, but also one of the best as a result. And yeah, really surprised that this is on this game, to be honest, because I've never heard of ATS before. They were actually born out of Ferrari, as several of their engineers and technicians were fired from Ferrari after they made their displeasure known about the way the company was being run. And yeah, they ended up setting up their own company. Initially they went into F1, but they didn't really succeed. The highest place they ever got in an F1 race was 11th place, and then they subsequently went to try and make a road car, but because their F1 look really wasn't on their side, the road car didn't get past past 12 units. So yeah, big surprise that they've really come back, to be honest, but I am really rather glad. And yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with taking the best bits of a car that is already really rather good in terms of driving and engineering, and yeah, just improving upon it in terms of looks, speed, and acceleration. Speaking of acceleration, this car can do 0 to 60 in 2.913 seconds, 0 to 105.6 seconds, and it goes to a top speed of 220 miles an hour. Now that is far faster than the 12C, and it's even pretty much on par with the likes of the 720S, which even has less power than this, which, despite the fact that it has a slightly larger version of this engine. And yeah, also handles are really rather good as well. You're not going to get the best out of it on this current season because it is obviously winter, and this is certainly not a car meant for snowy and icy conditions, but even here it is still really rather controllable and really rather fun to drive. Yeah, the only real downside is that it still rather sounds like a 12C, so it's not got the best sounding engine note ever, but outside of that, everything else is really rather special, really rather unique, and really rather enjoyable to drive. And yeah, it's a real good car, and yeah, a real big surprise as well, because when I heard of it and the fact it was based on a 12C, I was a little bit ambivalent, thinking it was just going to be a 12C in a fancy frock, but it's more than that, a lot more than that, and yeah, really glad it's on the game. Does kind of make me wish that we have the original 2500 GT from the 60s though, because yeah, this car is obviously a spiritual successor to that car, and it would be nice to have that as well, because yeah, it does sound really rather interesting with its small capacity V8 in the middle of the car with its rear wheel drive layout, and the fact that yeah, it was built to kind of give Ferrari a black eye, but obviously didn't really succeed, but would nonetheless be nice to see what that car is like to drive. But yeah, this is great in its own right, and yeah, I just wish we had more rare sports cars, supercars like this, to be honest, because as much as I prefer my slower vehicles, I do really rather like my more rarer and more interesting supercars as well, because we have lots of Ferraris, McLarens and Lamborghinis, but it's not often that we get a much rarer car like this on a game like Forza. So yeah, it would be nice to have some more, rarer cars out there on this game. But yeah, cracking vehicle. Try it out. It's part of the current Winter Festival playlist, so you have to get 50% to get the car. But trust me, it's well worth getting, and yeah, I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much as I do. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.